Good deal. So I'm Alex Taylor. I'm a former missionary kid. I'm a Teal Fellow, as they mentioned, and I started building drones when I was 12 because I couldn't afford my pilot's license. And so I started Orb Aerospace to build accessible aviation for all mankind.
I'm Brian Davis. I've spent the last 25 years flying F-16s and A-10s around the world in combat operations and building international partnerships. I'm here because I believe we can connect the body of Christ globally in our greatest time of need.
And together, between a missionary kid and a fighter pilot, we believe that we will accomplish the Great Commission in our lifetime through aviation. It's the last 5%. And so we realized, fighter pilot, missionary kid, we realized the problem with aviation, this thing that we loved, it wasn't the airplanes themselves, it was the infrastructure you need to operate it. And the fact that the world does not have enough infrastructure. A good example of this is the lack of logistics infrastructure in the Philippines. 95% of islands have no runways at all, are within days from the capital city. When you have infrastructure, it can be destroyed overnight due to natural disasters. We saw this in North Carolina, where Orb restored communications in 24 hours after Hurricane Helene. We see this in war. 3 years of a bloody conflict in Ukraine has left 50% of the country without power. And this is an actual photo of our partners in Burma. They're carrying sick, pregnant, and wounded people in what they call a bamboo ambulance. It's a 3-day hike into the jungle and a 3-day hike back because 40% of Burma's land area is unreached by roads, and what roads they do build are washed out every year due to the monsoons. So we can either spend trillions of dollars in decades, if not a century, building more roads, bridges, and runways, only to see them destroyed during the next conflict or natural disaster, or we can turn autonomous aircraft into on-demand infrastructure anywhere in the world. This is communications, power, and logistics for places that either have never had it, like the Philippines, where it's been destroyed by natural disasters, like North Carolina, and where it's been destroyed by conflict, like the Ukraine. So believe it or not, 80% of the US Defense Department's budget doesn't go to weapons and ISR, as Brian puts it, putting warheads on foreheads. It goes towards infrastructure, sustainment, and logistics. On one hand, you can imagine the left side is your tanks and the right side is your Jeeps. So someone needs to be building autonomous systems, specifically aircraft, for everyone who can't or won't buy from a weapons manufacturer. That's why Orb is building Lassie. Lassie is a small drone designed by Orb, but manufactured by the American automotive industry being reindustrialized right where we live in the Midwest. Lassie does some pretty cool things. It flies for hours. It covers long distances. Imagine from Milwaukee to Grand Rapids, or from here down to downtown SF, something your DJI can't do. And it carries full-size radio equipment. And so it does this because it becomes basically a flying cell tower. These are things that traditionally much larger, more expensive, and more complicated UAVs do. UAVs that need launchers, maintainers, and pilots. Instead, Lassie weighs 12 pounds, believe it or not, fits inside of a backpack, and goes where you go, becomes another part of your kit. If Lassie is a flying cell tower, you can imagine our communication kits, which is our second product going to market later this year, is what allows it to be a cell tower. It layers a bunch of communication technologies and then translates between them. So you can imagine in a natural disaster, if you texted a certain number and it came over the frequency of a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, that's what these kits will allow you to do. Between Lassie and the Arc Edge kits, with a 1% market capture, we can do $100 million of revenue in the next 2 to 3 years. And the manufacturing infrastructure is already there. We don't have to build a factory. But Lassie and the Arc Edge kits, they are just the beginning of what we're building at Orb. If when our drone flies over, your phone starts working, when Shepherd, our medium-sized platform, lands, it starts producing power, restores power to the grid, and our largest platform we call Nomad becomes global decentralized logistics infrastructure. What do I mean by that? The very first time you take off from something that's not an airport in California and you land at something that's not an airport in Hawaii, now, for the first time in human history, you can go point to point anywhere in the world, global decentralized logistics, using just Orbs plus diesel fuel. This is like the first time you got in a car and you drove from New York to LA. This is human history. This is not just another airplane. So you guys can see that using these incremental steps, we unlock revenue, but we also build the core components of a legacy, redemptive aerospace company that is also going to dominate a market that is completely unaddressed. Lassie went from concept to operational in 4 months. Our advanced manufacturing went from concept to reality in 6 months, funded by Air Force Research Labs. Our ARC Edge kits, the communication kits, were deployed with customers in 2 months. Our team moves very quickly. But let's be honest, you guys don't want to buy an Amazon delivery truck, you just want them to give you your package, right? And so Orb sells infrastructure as a service. We make customers out of people who have historically never been customers of aviation. And specifically within the Air Force, National Guard, and Navy, they might not even be allowed to buy airplanes, but they are allowed to contract services. Next time you guys get a spare moment, I challenge you guys to go to Google Earth and grab the Google Street View guy in the corner and notice which areas light up and notice which areas stay dark. Billions of people live in these places. These are the kinds of places that are unreached by infrastructure. These are also the kinds of places that are unreached by the gospel. Orb is going to these kinds of places. Clearly, we need better infrastructure. Orb is turning autonomous aircraft into infrastructure, and infrastructure accelerates the gospel. Thank you.